I'm Carrie.
And I'm Todd.
And we are Secure Networkers. Today we're actually going to continue our conversation about remote users, security of remote users, and focus specifically on DNS filtering.
So what is DNS? So DNS is domain name services. So what that means for you is when I go out on the internet, when my machine is communicating outside of its network, it's going to, or even inside its network, it's going to reach out to a name and associate that with an IP address, IPv4, IPv6, depending on how it's configured.
For example, securenetworkers.com is associated with an IP address specifically, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's recruited. If you're going to www.securenetworkers.com, mail.securenetworkers.com, ftp.securenetworkers.com, those are all A records that are listed in the name service record for securenetworkers.com.
Got it. Okay.
So what is DNS filtering? Well, DNS filtering is going to check and see where your computer is going. Is it a good location? Could it be something that's malicious? Was it something that was created yesterday and there's tons of traffic going to it and the telemetry data is showing that that's not a good place to go? So what DNS filtering would do would be to prevent systems from accessing known bad locations and just block communication.
Now, if something isn't listed as, let's say nobody has yet said this is a bad location, but it's a little sketch, or maybe it's not. Maybe when you click on a link, because the idea is that if you get an email that says click here rather than take you to somewhere you're not supposed to go, DNS filtering makes sure you go where you're supposed to go, or it blocks. It'll shut it down so you can't click on it at all, correct?
Correct.
But my question is, if it hasn't yet identified that site's a bad site, what else is it looking for? I mean, is it looking for A to match up to B in terms of when I say I'm going to, I don't know, newssite.com, that if I click on newssite.com, I'm actually going to newssite.com?
So that's one of the things that we're looking for typically with DNS filtering as well, is was this site created in the last 48 hours? So if it was less than 48 hours, it's going to block that site as well. That's just a policy. You could say, I want to allow my users using this DNS filtering service to access those new sites. You could do a one-off and say allow this particular site, so therefore it doesn't get blocked. But unless you go in and say, hey, don't allow this site, that's basically going to go through. It's going to be blocked because it's a newly registered domain.
Unless you allow it.
Unless you allow it.
So I forgot my question. Does this also do content type filtering?
Absolutely. So you can do from a productivity standpoint, you can check by category, or you can even do specific sites. So if you don't want the users going to facebook.com, instagram.com, you don't want them utilizing company systems to access those websites, you can do an entire category, or you can do it individually on those sites. If you don't want them looking at anything pornographic or any type of gaming sites, you can block all those as well. There's a very large amount of categories that you can choose from. Or you can just, by site, say, hey, I see a lot of my users going to this location. They're wasting a lot of company time. By doing this, you can block those sites.
So in terms of remote users and how we use this for security, what kinds of things, other than going to newly established site, what other things in terms of security for remote users does DNS filtering do?
Yeah, so how usually we set it up for is we use a agent that's based on that machine that is doing that filtering. So regardless of what information they're getting, we're not statically assigning this DNS. It's not, we don't have access to their home routers, so we're doing it through an agent on that particular system.
I see.
One of the other things that we do from a DNS filtering standpoint is we can also block certain, or actually just we're logging these sites as well, but we can block particular cloud systems. If you're using Office 365 but you want to block Gmail, we can actually block other cloud services through CASB, CASB. It's basically blocking certain things like Salesforce. Would be something you could log and find out, okay, who's logging into these sites. Maybe you have a problem with what some people call shadow IT in your organization. You don't use these particular cloud applications, and somehow you've got people within your team using other cloud applications. They could be using it to exfiltrate company data. They could be using it because I'm getting ready to jump ship and go work for company B.
Right. So basically you lock down users from being able to use unapproved or non-approved applications on
Absolutely.
their systems. Got
Yes.
it. Okay. Right.
So the main thing is the data, right? The telemetry data that comes from outside source. Where does the intelligence come from? Because this stuff has to be updated very
time.
largely. So make sure whatever DNS filtering service that you're using uses very up-to-date intelligence data. So it knows what the good sites, the bad sites, where is a good place to go and where's a place that is a known malicious site.
Okay, so I think that concludes our conversation for today. Feel free to go to our website at securenetworkers.com. Feel free to ask questions on our YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.